Hello friends, I'm Ellie, welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, I will continue to bring you interesting fairy tales. Through fairy tales, you will learn many valuable lessons. The first fairy tale, The Elder Bush. Once upon a time there was a little boy who had taken cold. He had gone out and got his feet wet, though nobody could imagine how it had happened, for it was quite dry weather. So his mother undressed him, put him to bed, and had the teapot brought in to make him a good cup of elderflower tea. Just at that moment the merry old man came in who lived up atop of the house all alone, for he had neither wife nor children, but he liked children very much, and knew so many fairy tales, that it was quite delightful.
Now drink your tea,
said the boy's mother.
then perhaps you may hear a fairy tale.
If I had but something new to tell.
Said the old man.
But how did the child get his feet wet?
That is the very thing that nobody can make out,
said his mother.
Am I to hear a fairy tale?
Asked the little boy.
Yes, if you can tell me exactly, for I must know that first, how deep the gutter is in the little street opposite that you pass through in going to school.
Just up to the middle of my boot,
said the child.
But then I must go into the deep hole.
Ali, that's where the wet feet came from,
said the old man.
I ought now to tell you a story, but I don't know any more.
You can make one in a moment,
said the little boy.
My mother says that all you look at can be turned into a fairy tale, and that you can find a story in everything.
Yes, but such tales and stories are good for nothing. The right sort come of themselves. They tap at my forehead and say, "Here we are."
Won't there be a tap soon?
Asked the little boy. And his mother laughed, put some elderflowers in the teapot, and poured boiling water upon them.
Do tell me something. Pray do.
Yes, if a fairy tale would come of its own accord, but they are proud and haughty, and come only when they choose. Stop,
said he all on a sudden.
I have it. Pay attention. There is one in the teapot.
And the little boy looked at the teapot. The cover rose more and more, and the elderflowers came forth so fresh and white, and shot up long branches. Out of the spout even did they spread themselves on all sides, and grew larger and larger. It was a splendid elder bush, a whole tree, and it reached into the very bed, and pushed the curtains aside. How it bloomed! And what an odor! In the middle of the bush sat a friendly-looking old woman in a most strange dress. It was quite green, like the leaves of the elder, and was trimmed with large white elder flowers, so that at first one could not tell whether it was a stuff, or a natural green and real flowers.
What's that woman's name?
Asked the little boy.
The Greeks and Romans,
said the old man. Called her a dryad, but that we do not understand. The people who live in the new booths have a much better name for her. They call her Old Granny, and she it is to whom you are to pay attention. Now listen, and look at the beautiful elder bush. A row of buildings for seamen in Copenhagen. Just such another large blooming elder tree stands near the new booths. It grew there in the corner of a little miserable courtyard, and under it sat, of an afternoon, in the most splendid sunshine, two old people, an old seaman, and his old wife. They had great-grandchildren, and were soon to celebrate the 50th anniversary of their marriage, but they could not exactly recollect the date, and old Granny sat in the tree, and looked as pleased as now.
I know the datey,
said she, but those below did not hear her, for they were talking about old times.
Yes, can't you remember when we were very little?
Said the old seaman.
And ran and played about. It was the very same courtyard where we now are, and we stuck slips in the ground, and made a garden.
I remember it well.
Said the old woman.
I remember it quite well. We watered the slips, and one of them was an elder bush. It took root, put forth green shoots, and grew up to be the large tree under which we old folks are now sitting.
To be sorry,
said he.
And there in the corner stood a water pail, where I used to swim my boats.
true, but first we went to school to learn somewhat.
said she.
And then we were confirmed. We both cried, but in the afternoon we went up the round tower and looked down on Copenhagen and far, far away over the water. Then we went to Frederiksberg, where the king and the queen were sailing about in their splendid barges.
But I had a different sort of sailing to that later, and that too for many a year, a long way off, on great voyages.
Yes, many a time have I wept for your sake.
Said she.
I thought you were dead and gone, and lying down in the deep waters. Many a night have I got up to see if the wind had not changed, and changed it had, sure enough, but you never came. I remember so well one day, when the rain was pouring down in torrents. The scavengers were before the house where I was in service, and I had come up with the dust and remained standing at the door. It was dreadful weather, when just as I was there, the postman came and gave me a letter. It was from you. What a tour that letter had made! I opened it instantly and read. I laughed and wept. I was so happy. In it I read that you were in warm lands where the coffee tree grows. What a blessed land that must be! You related so much, and I saw it all the while the rain was pouring down, and I standing there with the dust box. At the same moment came someone who embraced me.
Yes, but you gave him a good box on his ear that made it tingle.
But I did not know it was you. You arrived as soon as your letter, and you were so handsome that you still are, and had a long yellow silk handkerchief round your neck, and a brand new hat on. Oh, you were so dashing. Good heavens! What weather it was, and what a state the street was in.
And then we married.
Said he.
Don't you remember? And then we had our first little boy, and then Mary, and Nicholas, and Peter, and Christian.
Yes, and how they all grew up to be honest people, and were beloved by everybody.
And their children also have children, said the old sailor. Yes, those are our grandchildren, full of strength and vigor. It was, methinks, about this season that we had our wedding.
Yes, this very day is the 50th anniversary of the marriage.
Said old Granny, sticking her head between the two old people, who thought it was their neighbor who nodded to them. They looked at each other and held one another by the hand. Soon after came their children, and their grandchildren, for they knew well enough that it was the day of the 50th anniversary, and had come with their gratulations that very morning, but the old people had forgotten it, although they were able to remember all that had happened many years ago. And the elder bush sent forth a strong odor in the sun, that was just about to set, and shone right in the old people's faces. They both looked so rosy-cheeked, and the youngest of the grandchildren danced around them, and called out quite delighted that there was to be something very splendid that evening. They were all to have hot potatoes. And old Nanny nodded in the bush, and shouted hurrah with the rest.
But that is no fairy tale.
Said the little boy, who was listening to the story.
The thing is, you must understand it.
Said the narrator.
Let us ask old Nanny.
That was no fairy tale, 'tis true.
Said old Nanny.
But now it's coming. The most wonderful fairy tales grow out of that which is reality. Were that not the case, you know my magnificent elderbush could not have grown out of the teapot.
And then she took the little boy out of bed, laid him on her bosom, and the branches of the elder tree, full of flowers, closed around her. They sat in an aerial dwelling, and it flew with them through the air. Oh, it was wondrous beautiful. Old Nanny had grown all of a sudden a young and pretty maiden, but her robe was still the same green stuff with white flowers which she had worn before. On her bosom she had a real elderflower, and in her yellow waving hair a wreath of the flowers. Her eyes were so large and blue that it was a pleasure to look at them. She kissed the boy, and now they were of the same age and felt alike. Hand in hand they went out of the bower, and they were standing in the beautiful garden of their home. Near the green lawn Papa's walking stick was tied, and for the little ones it seemed to be endowed with life, for as soon as they got astride it, the round polished knob was turned into a magnificent neighing head. A long black mane fluttered in the breeze, and four slender yet strong legs shot out. The animal was strong and handsome, and away they went at full gallop round the lawn.
Hootsa! Now we are riding miles off,
Said the boy.
We are riding away to the castle where we were last year. And on they rode round the grass plot, and the little maiden, who, we know, was no one else but old Nanny, kept on crying out.
Now we are in the country. Don't you see the farmhouse yonder? And there is an elder tree standing beside it, and the cock is scraping away the earth for the hens. Look how he struts. And now we are close to the church. It lies high upon the hill between the large oak trees, one of which is half decayed. And now we are by the smithy, where the fire is blazing, and where the half-naked men are banging with their hammers till the sparks fly about. Away, away, to the beautiful country seat.
And all that the little maiden, who sat behind on the stick, spoke of flew by in reality. The boys saw it all, and yet they were only going round the grass plot. Then they played in a side avenue, and marked out a little garden on the earth. And they took elder blossoms from their hair, planted them, and they grew just like those the old people planted when they were children. As related before, they went hand in hand, as the old people had done when they were children, but not to the round tower, or to Fredericksburg. No, the little damsel wound her arms round the boy, and then they flew far away through all Denmark. And spring came, and summer, and then it was autumn, and then winter, and 1,000 pictures were reflected in the eye and in the heart of the boy, and the little girl always sang to him.
This you will never forget.
And during their whole flight the elder tree smelt so sweet and odorous. He remarked the roses and the fresh beeches, but the elder tree had a more wondrous fragrance, for its flowers hung on the breast of the little maiden, and there, too, did he often lay his head during the flight.
It is lovely here in spring,
said the young maiden. And they stood in a beechwood that had just put on its first green, where the woodroof at their feet sent forth its fragrance, and the pale red anemone looked so pretty among the verdure.
Oh, would it were always spring in the sweetly smelling Danish beech forests? It is lovely here in summer,
said she, and she flew past old castles of bygone days of chivalry, where the red walls and the embattled gables were mirrored in the canal, where the swans were swimming, and peered up into the old cool avenues. In the fields the corn was waving like the sea, in the ditches red and yellow flowers were growing, while wild-thrown flowers and blooming convolvuluses were creeping in the hedges, and towards evening the moon rose round and large, and the haycocks in the meadows smelt so sweetly.
This one never forgets. It is lovely here in autumn,
said the little maiden. And suddenly the atmosphere grew as blue again as before. The forest grew red and green and yellow colored. The dogs came leaping along, and whole flocks of wildfowl flew over the cairn, where blackberry bushes were hanging round the old stones. The sea was dark blue, covered with ships full of white sails, and in the barn old women, maidens, and children were sitting picking hops into a large cask. The young sang songs, but the old told fairy tales of mountain sprites and soothsayers. Nothing could be more charming.
It is delightful here in winter,
said the little maiden. And all the trees were covered with hoarfrost. They looked like white corals. The snow crackled underfoot, as if one had new boots on, and one falling star after the other was seen in the sky. The Christmas tree was lighted in the room, presents were there, and good humor reigned. In the country the violin sounded in the room of the peasant, the newly baked cakes were attacked. Even the poorest child said,
"It is really delightful here in winter."
Yes, it was delightful, and the little maiden showed the boy everything, and the elder tree still was fragrant, and the red flag, with the white cross, was still waving, the flag under which the old seaman in the new booths had sailed. And the boy grew up to be a lad, and was to go forth in the wide world far, far away to warm lands, where the coffee tree grows, but at his departure the little maiden took an elder blossom from her bosom and gave it him to keep, and it was placed between the leaves of his prayer book. And when in foreign lands he opened the book, it was always at the place where the keepsake flower lay, and the more he looked at it, the fresher it became. He felt, as it were, the fragrance of the Danish groves, and from among the leaves of the flowers he could distinctly see the little maiden peeping forth with her bright blue eyes, and then she whispered,
It is delightful here in spring, summer, autumn, and winter.
and 100 visions glided before his mind. Thus passed many years, and he was now an old man, and sat with his old wife under the blooming tree. They held each other by the hand, as the old grandfather and grandmother yonder in the new booths did, and they talked exactly like them of old times, and of the 50th anniversary of their wedding. The little maiden, with the blue eyes, and with elder blossoms in her hair, sat in the tree, nodded to both of them, and said,
Today is the 50th anniversary.
and then she took 2 flowers out of her hair and kissed them. First, they shone like silver, then like gold, and when they laid them on the heads of the old people, each flower became a golden crown. So there they both sat, like a king and a queen, under the fragrant tree, that looked exactly like an elder. The old man told his wife the story of Old Nanny, as it had been told him when a boy. And it seemed to both of them it contained much that resembled their own history, and those parts that were like it pleased them best.
Thus it is.
Said the little maiden in the tree.
Some call me Old Nanny, others a Dryad, but in reality, my name is Remembrance. 'Tis I who sit in the tree that grows and grows. I can remember, I can tell things. Let me see if you have my flowers still.
And the old man opened his prayer book. There lay the elder blossom, as fresh as if it had been placed there but a short time before, and Remembrance nodded, and the old people, decked with crowns of gold, sat in the flush of the evening sun. They closed their eyes, and yes, that's the end of the story. The little boy lay in his bed. He did not know if he had dreamed or not, or if he had been listening while someone told him the story. The teapot was standing on the table, but no elder tree was growing out of it. And the old man, who had been talking, was just on the point of going out at the door, and he did go.
How splendid that was!
Said the little boy.
Mother, I have been to warm countries.
So I should think,
Said his mother.
when one has drunk 2 good cupfuls of elderflower tea, 'tis likely enough one goes into warm climates.
And she tucked him up nicely, lest he should take cold.
You have had a good sleep while I have been sitting here and arguing with him whether it was a story or a fairy tale.
And where's Old Nanny?
Asked the little boy.
In the teapot,
Said his mother.
and there she may remain.
The elder bush symbolizes the memory and recollection ability of the main character. In life, beautiful memories are a source of motivation and joy, helping individuals reflect on the journey taken and cherish precious moments. The elder bush grows from a teapot, where elderflower tea is made, symbolizing freshness and beauty. Through time, the bush grows, creating beautiful images and memories, serving as a symbol of change and growth in life. The main character embarks on adventures through spring, summer, autumn, and winter, each season bringing different experiences and happiness. The story reminds us of the importance of living in the present and enjoying each moment. The main character goes through various challenging stages in life, but through the preservation of memories and loyalty, he overcomes all difficulties and achieves a happy life with loved ones. The main character faces and conquers challenges, symbolizing the strength that comes from preserving memories and staying loyal to loved ones. The second fairy tale, The Sweethearts. A whipping top and a little ball lay together in a box, among other toys, and the top said to the ball,
Shall we be married, as we live in the same box?
But the ball, which wore a dress of morocco leather, and thought as much of herself as any other young lady, would not even condescend to reply. The next day came the little boy to whom the playthings belonged, and he painted the top red and yellow, and drove a brass-headed nail into the middle, so that while the top was spinning round it looked splendid.
Look at me.
Said the top to the ball.
What do you say now? Shall we be engaged to each other? We should suit so well. You spring, and I dance. No one could be happier than we should be.
Indeed. Do you think so? Perhaps you do not know that my father and mother were Morocco slippers and that I have a Spanish cork in my body.
Yes, but I am made of mahogany.
said the top.
The Major himself turned me. He has a turning lathe of his own, and it is a great amusement to him.
Can I believe it?
Asked the ball,
May I never be whipped again?
said the top.
If I am not telling you the truth.
You certainly know how to speak for yourself very well.
Said the ball.
But I cannot accept your proposal. I am almost engaged to a swallow. Every time I fly up in the air, he puts his head out of the nest and says, "Will you?" And I have said yes to myself silently, and that is as good as being half engaged, but I will promise never to forget you.
Much good that will be to me.
Said the top, and they spoke to each other no more. Next day, the ball was taken out by the boy. The top saw it flying high in the air like a bird, till it would go quite out of sight. Each time it came back, as it touched the earth, it gave a higher leap than before, either because it longed to fly upward, or from having a Spanish cork in its body. But the ninth time it rose in the air, it remained away, and did not return. The boy searched everywhere for it, but he searched in vain, for it could not be found. It was gone.
I know very well where she is.
Sighed the top.
She is in the swallow's nest, and has married the swallow.
The more the top thought of this, the more he longed for the ball. His love increased the more, just because he could not get her, and that she should have been won by another, was the worst of all. The top still twirled about and hummed, but he continued to think of the ball, and the more he thought of her, the more beautiful she seemed to his fancy. The several years passed by, and his love became quite old. The top, also, was no longer young, but there came a day when he looked handsomer than ever, for he was gilded all over. He was now a golden top, and whirled and danced about till he hummed quite loud, and was something worth looking at, but one day he leaped too high, and then he, also, was gone. They searched everywhere, even in the cellar, but he was nowhere to be found. Where could he be? He had jumped into the dustbin, where all sorts of rubbish were lying, cabbage stalks, dust, and rain droppings that had fallen down from the gutter under the roof.
Now I am in a nice place,
Said he.
My gilding will soon be washed off here. Oh dear, what a set of rabble I have got amongst.
And then he glanced at a curious round thing like an old apple, which lay near a long, leafless cabbage stalk. It was, however, not an apple, but an old ball, which had lain for years in the gutter, and was soaked through with water.
Thank goodness, here comes one of my own class with whom I can talk.
Said the ball, examining the gilded top.
I am made of Morocco.
She said,
I was sewn together by a young lady, and I have a Spanish cork in my body, but no one would think it to look at me now. I was once engaged to a swallow, but I fell in here from the gutter under the roof, and I have lain here more than 5 years, and have been thoroughly drenched. Believe me, it is a long time for a young maiden.
The top said nothing, but he thought of his old love, and the more she said, the more clear it became to him that this was the same ball. The servant then came to clean out the dustbin.
Ah,
She exclaimed.
here is a gilt top.
So the top was brought again to notice and honor, but nothing more was heard of the little ball. He spoke not a word about his old love, for that soon died away. When the beloved object has lain for 5 years in a gutter, and has been drenched through, no one cares to know her again on meeting her in a dustbin. The initial proposal for marriage between the top and the ball highlights the theme of social class and the tendency to form judgments based on appearances. The ball, with its Morocco leather dress, rejects the top's proposal, emphasizing a sense of superiority. The top's unrequited love for the ball reflects the theme of longing and unfulfilled desires. Despite the top's efforts to impress and win the ball's affection, she remains indifferent and ultimately chooses another partner. The transformation of the top into a gilded golden top represents change and aging. As time passes, the top undergoes a physical transformation, becoming more attractive on the outside. However, this transformation also leads to a tragic end, symbolizing the transient nature of beauty. The ball's engagement to a swallow and the top's eventual abandonment highlight the fleeting nature of love and how relationships can be unpredictable. Love can be lost or redirected, and individuals may move on to new connections. The ball's prolonged exposure to harsh conditions in the gutter and the top's accidental jump into the dustbin symbolize rejection and loss. Both toys experience a form of abandonment, emphasizing the transient nature of affection and the inevitability of separation. In the end, the top finds companionship with the old ball in the dustbin. Despite their worn-out and discarded states, they share a common history and class. This portrays the idea that individuals facing similar circumstances may find solace and understanding in each other. The third fairy tale, the buckwheat. Very often, after a violent thunderstorm, a field of buckwheat appears blackened and singed as if a flame of fire had passed over it. The country people say that this appearance is caused by lightning, but I will tell you what Th Sparrow says. And the sparrow heard it from an old willow tree which grew near a field of buckwheat, and is there still. It is a large venerable tree, though a little crippled by age. The trunk has been split, and out of the crevice grass and brambles grow. The tree bends forward slightly, and the branches hang quite down to the ground just like green hair. Corn grows in the surrounding fields, not only rye and barley, but oats, pretty oats that, when ripe, look like a number of little golden canary birds sitting on a bough. The corn has a smiling look, and the heaviest and richest ears bend their heads low as if in pious humility. Once there was also a field of buckwheat, and this field was exactly opposite to old willow tree. The buckwheat did not bend like the other grain, but erected its head proudly and stiffly on the stem.
I am as valuable as any other corn,
Said he.
and I am much handsomer. My flowers are as beautiful as the bloom of the apple blossom, and it is a pleasure to look at us. Do you know of anything prettier than we are, you old willow tree?
And the willow tree nodded his head, as if he would say, Indeed I do. But the buckwheat spread itself out with pride, and said,
Stupid tree! He is so old that grass grows out of his body!
There arose a very terrible storm. All the field flowers folded their leaves together, or bowed their little heads, while the storm passed over them, but the buckwheat stood erect in its pride.
Bend your head as we do.
Said the flowers.
I have no occasion to do so!
Replied the buckwheat.
Bend your head as we do.
Cried the ears of corn.
The angel of the storm is coming. His wings spread from the sky above to the earth beneath. He will strike you down before you can cry for mercy.
But I will not bend my head!
Said the buckwheat.
Close your flowers and bend your leaves.
Said the old willow tree.
Do not look at the lightning when the cloud bursts. Even men cannot do that. In a flash of lightning, heaven opens, and we can look in. But the sight will strike even human beings blind. What then must happen to us, who only grow out of the earth, and are so inferior to them, if we venture to do so?
Inferior, indeed!
Said the buckwheat.
Now I intend to have a peep into heaven!
Proudly and boldly he looked up, while the lightning flashed across the sky as if the whole world were in flames. When the dreadful storm had passed, the flowers and the corn raised their drooping heads in the pure still air, refreshed by the rain, but the buckwheat lay like a weed in the field, burnt to blackness by the lightning. The branches of the old willow tree rustled in the wind, and large water drops fell from his green leaves as if the old willow were weeping. Then the sparrows asked why he was weeping, when all around him seemed so cheerful.
See
They said,
how the sun shines, and the clouds float in the blue sky. Do you not smell the sweet perfume from flower and bush? Wherefore do you weep, old willow tree?
Then the willow told them of the haughty pride of the buckwheat, and of the punishment which followed in consequence. This is the story told me by the sparrows one evening when I begged them to relate some tale to me. Buckwheat, symbolized by the buckwheat field, stands proudly and does not bow down like other grains during a storm. This signifies arrogance and pride. The consequences are evident as the buckwheat is struck by lightning and burnt black. The old willow tree, symbolizing wisdom and having weathered many storms, advises the buckwheat and other flowers to humble themselves before the power of nature. This reflects the importance of respecting and being humble in the face of the beauty and strength of nature. The buckwheat's arrogance leads to painful consequences when it is struck by lightning and burned. The story serves as a warning about the consequences of arrogance and the importance of showing humility and respect for the greater forces of nature. After After the storm, the flowers and grains recover, but the buckwheat lies buried in the field. This represents the acceptance of nature's ways and the painful end for those who do not adapt and accept change when needed. The old willow tree sheds tears, representing regret, as it recounts the arrogant behavior of the buckwheat and the ensuing consequences. This demonstrates the discomfort and regret witnessed when arrogance leads to destruction and loss. This is the end of today's storytelling session. I will come back tomorrow. Bye-bye!